to Adobe Live with me, your host, Pixie Pugh, and this time we're joined by Fabiola Lara, who's going to be showing us how to... Oh, she had it already. She had it already. Fabiola Lara, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be showing us today.
Yes, I'm going to be sharing with you how to add kind of text titles to your videos, something a little bit like this, and how to animate some captions, just kind of add some text design animation to your social media videos.
Absolutely awesome. I cannot wait. But before we get started, let's quickly go ahead and check out the chat. Let's say hello to everybody. Cody Bear, Penny, Oliver, Katrina. Hello. Welcome in. I hope you're ready to learn something new. And if you want to try some of what you're learning along with Fabiola today, maybe pop open your Premiere program, grab some files, and let's go along together. But for those that are joining on the YouTube channel, or if you're watching from Behance, hello, welcome. Please don't forget to subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with the latest streams, the latest events, and be involved with the community. But back to you, Fabiola. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and continue with what you were saying about what we'll be learning today?
Yes. So before we get started, a little bit about me. I'm an illustrator and I'm a content creator. I have a podcast. I do a lot of different kinds of illustration and design work. So here are some comics I've done, some live portraits, previous Adobe series that I've hosted. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I did the Instagram vote stickers, which you may see in the app. And yeah, that's my kind of work. But today we are working on this text title design for social media videos. As an illustrator, I create a lot of content about my work just to get kind of my work out there. It's like such a natural part of being a modern day artist online and as a creator. So today I'm going to show you how you can add some kind of just interest to your videos by adding custom text titles and animate your captions so that they look different from kind of part to part in your captions, and just add some customization and how to automate it a little bit so that you're not having to repeat it from scratch every single time. There's still a little customization involved every time, but making it a little easier for everyone.
I think in this day and age that we're in now, the automation part is very, very exciting to hear. So I cannot wait to see a little bit of that.
Yes.
But for those that are in the chat, if you have any questions for Fabiola as the stream continues, please pop them down. I will feed them back to her.
Yes. Bring all your questions to me. I will do my best to answer them as best as I can. And let's get into the tutorial, into the demo. So here, for just starting off, I just have the basic edited sequence. I don't even have music on here. I didn't want to kind of get our eardrums numb to the same music over and over. So I took that out. But just to show you what I have when I edit, this is kind of like a simple style process video that I usually shoot whenever I draw something. This was just a sketchbook session, so super low pressure. And I'm going to mute the narration for right now, just as I scrub through, but it's basically just a sketchbook session. And I just filmed this in one angle because sometimes when you're creating stuff, you don't want to set up 3 cameras just for a 20-minute sketchbook session. Like, that's kind of overkill sometimes. So this is just one angle shot in 4K with some zoom ins, that kind of thing. And a little bit of an intro. So let me play through it. So you have an idea of the style of video that we're editing, and then how I'm going to use titles and captions to add even further interest. I'm going to unmute it here and play it through. Time for another 20-minute draw with me. This time I want to draw from this footage that I took in Paris. Whenever I look at my camera roll from that trip, I just really want to go back, but I can't. So instead, I'm going to draw it, and drawing it really helps me just like remember where I was, remember the trip that I had, because it kind of goes really fast when you're in the moment. But by drawing and sitting with this picture for 20 minutes, I'm able to like literally remember where I was, remember the trip, reminisce, and also like practice the skill of drawing what I'm seeing, which is actually kind of hard because you have to like simplify all the information from the photo and reinterpret it and put your own twist on it. And then the 20-minute limit helps me prevent myself from falling into perfectionism, because otherwise, if I had notes time limit, I could sit with this for probably forever. But by having that limit, I'm just like, go, 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 capture it, do it quick, and kind of practice that muscle of just drawing what I'm seeing freely. And I ended up really liking how this one turned out. And I liked it so much that I wasn't even sure if I wanted to like color it in with markers just because it looks really cute in black and white. So I finished 2 minutes early, but it's so cute. So that's the video. You know, we're watching it just this one time through, and now I'm going to show you how I'm going to just jazz it up a bit by adding those title effects, because otherwise it can be kind of slow. It feels kind of slow. It feels like a long minute. And so by adding titles and captions, you kind of keep that interest for longer. And I just wanted to share also that, you know, I shot this. This is one shot, but then I went back and kind of reenacted an intro just to add some context. I think a lot of artists think you have to shoot this in like sequentially throughout your day. And it's
Right.
sometimes it's just not realistic to do that, right? Like I think when I actually drew this, I probably wasn't even, I was still in my pajamas probably. So then later in the day, I went and just did a recreation of what it might be like. And I added, I think even this shot, you know?
I
So
think what you're showing us isn't just what you're going to be teaching us in Premiere, but this is also a guide to smart planning, being able to do
yes.
it not sequentially, but just knowing, okay, I'm probably going to need this scene later. I'll refilm it with the same book so it looks like it's in the same timeline. But
Yes.
also, not just that, the fact that you've also added interest to your scenes by just doing the zoom. That's such a simple thing without you having to change anything, but already it doesn't feel stale or anything. It's pleasantly moving.
Right, exactly. That kind of adds a little bit of differentiation from scene to scene and kind of keeps it moving a bit. I have some zoom, some actual like slow camera zoom in here and some slow camera zoom in here. And, you know, I could add that further throughout the thing, but instead I just did kind of some jump cuts. And I think a common thing that creators have kind of get stuck with is you record an entire creation, an entire process, but then you just speed the whole thing up. And that can kind of be dull. It's just a little bit dull for the viewer, especially nowadays where people are editing like so creatively. So
Oh,
in this
yeah.
case, you don't see me draw every single line. I just cut through it, and I could cut even further. But this is a tutorial about titles and graphics. I'm not going to go there right now. Let's start with the titles, and then if we have time, I'll show you how I would cut it down even further. So something that you can see here is I have this timer throughout this sketchbook session, and that's kind of the hook to the video is like I'm drawing this in 20 minutes. It's not 20 minutes is not that tiny of a time for a sketch like this, but I think it does kind of create a hook, that an angle that maybe people aren't used to. So I want to emphasize that in my title and give some more context, right? And so the first shot that I have is kind of showing the final result, but it's really quick just to get people interested, like, oh, okay, what is she going to draw? Like maybe I want to know more about this. But here is where I want to start adding that title immediately, because, you know, it's been proven that having titles and having copy during your video is going to pull people in further, because they're naturally going to start reading it. Like there's no way you see text and you don't read it.
That's very true.
It's
That's
very hard to do
That's a
that.
very smart hook.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a question in the chat actually. Valerie's just asked, is this process the same in Premiere Pro beta?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it would work totally the same. Sometimes in beta, there's like updated features, so you could play with those, and obviously those are going to have a different effect, but it should work the exact same way and only be enhanced in beta. So go for it. Okay, so what I'm going to first do here is create kind of the title, the main title. And the main title for this is going to be Paris Sketch Session or Paris Cafe Sketch. Maybe that's what it'll be. And that's going to give people an understanding of what exactly I'm doing in this video, so they can anticipate if they want to stay tuned in or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit this T over here on the type tool. And if you don't have the exact same view as I do, if you go here to workspaces and hit vertical, you'll get this exact same view. And so that's really helpful, because if you're working in another view, it's going to be really hard to follow along and know where your cursor, where you're putting your text and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really like helpful to work in this workspace.
I didn't know that was a thing. So I'm already learning new stuff. Thank you.
The vertical workspace is honestly one of my favorites, because before I used to like put it on another window and then like mess with it or have it floating around. It would always get lost. So this is the best way to do it. And then you hit the type tool with the T if you want to use the shortcut, and just start drawing that text box. And then I don't know why I put that in there, but let's just, all right, we can just write
While
over that.
Fabiola's writing, Penny just said, I don't always have the sound on, so all captions are awesome. And actually, I feel like that works really well with exactly what you're saying, Fabiola. If people
Yes.
aren't hooked by the image, because normally you're scrolling past without the sound,
Yes.
either you're going to see the image or you're going to see the text first, which will make you pause for a second for the video to roll.
Exactly. And so, especially if you're talking about Instagram Reels, I feel like that's one that people do not always put sound on for, because, you know, when Instagram didn't have Reels, we just all were used to not having to turn that on. And now that we have stories and everything, it's a new way to consume. But right now I'm just typing in the text and trying to get it all to fit. I think I wanted to make my text box a little bigger. And if you just use the selection tool, you're able to just adjust that text box. Boom.
Lovely.
And just like any other time that you write in a program, you just type. And I'm going to center align it. There. Wait, I just realized I wrote this wrong. That's why it wasn't fitting.
On that note, Cody Bear also said, yep, captions are always a good idea. Cody also doesn't tend to have the sound on. It's true. Sometimes you're just going about your business while scrolling.
Yeah, or sometimes someone's talking to you and you can't have sound on because you're already multitasking.
That's true.
Okay, and then something important to note here is the anchor tool automatically sometimes gets made on the upper left corner, and here I had expanded the text box. A lot of times you don't need to pay attention to the anchor point if you're not adding any sort of animations or anything, but in our case, I'm just going to tell you now to check your anchor point and move it. And if you're not sure what an anchor point is, it's this little square kind of not crosshatch. There's a name for it that I can't think of right now. You just want to move this to the center just in case for future animation purposes. And if you do it and you don't end up animating, then you're fine either way. And so that's kind of the main text.
Valerie's just brought up a point, which I think maybe you do know about this, Fabiola. You'll be the perfect person. Valerie just said, I wish there was an auto caption feature in Premiere.
Yes, there definitely is an auto caption feature, and it is amazing, and it is so handy, and it works so seamlessly. And we're going to get to that any second now after we do the the title design. But the the caption tool, auto caption tool, is so great. And I'm going to show you how you can even expand upon it today.
So stick around, Valerie. We're on your point.
Yes. And so I'm also going to add a kind of a subtitle here, and I'm just using that text tool again. And you'll see that when I started using this text tool, if you're in the vertical workspace, you automatically open up the essential graphics panel. So here's where you can do all of the editing to this text. So right now, by kind of default, I use Helvetica New, but if you press this down arrow, you get all of the fonts that you've ever had in Adobe fonts. So this is really great. So if you have like a branded text that you always use, let's say, let me see. Oops. That's a crazy one. Let's see. Any of these that are Adobe fonts are going to already be in here. I was playing with this one actually recently called Obviously, and I have it in the black weight, and you can just adjust here with the slider the height of that, the points of that font, and you can even adjust how you center it. Basically everything that you can adjust that you would ever want to adjust for your text, you can adjust it here. And I'm going to adjust the line height.
Speaking of having the text being able to link to any Adobe font that you've connected it to, that's also kind of like the color library, where if you create one thing, it goes throughout all of them. So you're always connected to your piece and you can stay similar. You've got the same colors, same font, same all of that.
Exactly. That's a really, really great point. For example, I have these colors that I always use throughout Adobe, and they're right here. If you go into your libraries, if you've set a library up before, they're going to be right in there. And so now I can just Command A, select all of that text, use the eyedropper to just change the color. Now, of course, I want the color to be grabby, but this color works fine. So we can try that. And then on top of this kind of headline text, I'm going to have a sub text. Like I mentioned before, I had started creating it here, and I'm going to, select. The font is so big that it's not showing up. So let me just, all right, there we go. And so this is going to be like my subtitle for this video is going to be Sketch With Me, which is kind of like a popular type of style of video. Another one could be maybe like mini vlog. You can kind of just give some context, because that helps people decide if they want to stay, and kind of just immediately kind of hit them with as much context as possible. Yeah. And I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go to Arial maybe. Let's see.
Valerie just said, I often use auto caption feature in other apps and then delete all except for the main subject or an action word to add interest for the social media videos. I think, Valerie, what Fabiola is going to show you today with being able to do it inside Premiere, so you don't need to wobble about with different apps to go in, to go out. You won't need to do any of that. You could be able to do it all in one space.
You won't need to do that. You'll have it all in one place. And that's obviously great, because then you can export for all of your social media for all your social media platforms right in here, and you don't have to kind of go to a million places to get that done. So stick around and I'll show you how we're doing that. Now I'm getting a little picky with my fonts, but I'll stop in a second. I think I figured out what I want. Sometimes you change your mind.
I know. Even though you're normally like, you're dead set on it in the beginning. You're like, yeah, this is the one. This is the one. 5 minutes
I was
later,
like Helvetica all the way, and now I'm like, I don't know. Let's go with Futura. It has a bit of a Wes Anderson-y vibe, so that's what I'm going to do, because I know that was kind of like a style of video that a trend that became popular recently, so I'm going to do that. So here's kind of an example. I'm going to switch the color back to that neon, because I think it just matches a little bit better. So here we have like a quick example of how I would add this title, and right now I have this as all one graphic, but I kind of want it to be two separate graphics, so that what I mean by this is, if you look here at our timeline, the Sketch With Me and the Paris Cafe sketch, both of those texts are kind of grouped together in this one graphic layer. I don't want that to be the case, because I want to be able to animate the title, kind of each little part of the text separately. So even though this is really, there's a benefit to this. If you wanted to animate it all together, you have it all grouped together and you can apply your animation to the entire thing. Right. I want to show you how you can do it separately, because that's a little bit more complex. So all I did,
show more dynamism.
Yeah. So all I'm going to do, because I accidentally created it together, which happens, I'm going to select Sketch With Me. I'm going to click Option and just drag it up to duplicate it. Right. So now you don't see anything different here because it's stacked on top of each other. And I'm going to delete the Sketch With Me part here. So this is just the Paris Cafe sketch here, which I think I wrote wrong. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me fix this first.
How you spell sketch?
I don't know. I'm getting confused.
I think that's how you spell it.
I don't think that's how you spell it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think I've done something wrong. No, that's not how you spell it, but hold on.
Hold on.
Okay, so this is just, as you can see, I hid the top. So this is just Paris Cafe sketch. And then the top one is, we're going to delete the other part. So now we have two individual parts, this part and the bottom part.
You'll never guess. I believe, I've just looked it up. That is the correct spelling, but we've been looking at the word for too long. So
are you serious?
It's like when you look at pasta or something. That's how it's spelled. That is actually how it's spelled. I've just looked it up. That is how it's spelled. Yeah.
I am like, what is going on? I feel
think we normally
like
see it in capitals.
I'm definitely seeing it. It looks completely wrong right now to me, but
It's correct.
If you say it's correct, I'm going to put all my faith in you. Okay.
Paloma also says it's correct. You're safe.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I've looked at this for way too long. It literally looks so wrong to me, but I'm ignoring it. So one thing, now I have it on two separate graphics, and I'm going to, on this sketch with me, the kind of subtitle that's up on top, I'm going to adjust the background. So this isn't a separate graphic. So this is what's really cool about the Essential Graphics panel, is that this little background, you can just toggle on under the appearance. So in Essential Graphics, right, if you scroll down, you have the fill, which I already showed you how you play with it. You also have a stroke, which you can add and customize the color if you want. That looks crazy, so I'm not going to use it today. And you have this background. And by default, the background won't be rounded. It's going to be square. And that's a style that could work for you. But, you know, for whatever reason, I feel in my heart it's right for it to be rounded. So I'm rounding it out today. And then the opacity, you could make it very light, or you can make it all the way 100%. So I'm going to go with 100%. So it's completely opaque. And you can also use this middle slider. I don't know, the size slider of the background to adjust the size of that background. So those are just some cool things that you have built into the Essential Graphics panel. You don't have to go and create another shape behind your text or anything like that. And that's extremely handy.
Oh, yes.
And now we have those two titles created, but they start off at the beginning of our sequence and just kind of stay there. And that's kind of boring. We're trying to make this more interesting. We want to add pizzazz. So if you go over to the effects panel, if you're not seeing it, because I know if you're just getting started with Premiere, you can be really overwhelmed by all the different windows. Go to Window and click on Effects, and it'll pop up. Don't be afraid. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. There's a lot of options.
Also where the Essential Graphics are too. And if you do end up deleting stuff because you made your own window, you're able to make your own workspace in Premiere.
100%. You could customize your workspace. I tend to stick to the pre-made workspaces because they work really well. And then if I start to customize it, eventually I get lost and I hit reset to save layout, and I go back to my safe zone and everything feels good again.
So it's a nice backup.
Always there for me when I mess it up and jumble it. But here in the effects panel, if this is your first time looking, you have a ton of pre-made effects that you can add to your video. And because these text graphics, they're their own kind of clip, you can add these video effects right onto it without having to keyframe. And if you're new to Premiere or After Effects, keyframing is kind of custom frame by frame sort of animations that you can create. And it's really robust, but it can be really intimidated, especially when you're trying to work fast for social media. Maybe you don't want to start keyframing, right?
Right.
So if you go to video transitions, open that up. These are all the transitions you can now apply to that graphic. Some of them won't make sense, right? Like if I do, let's see. I feel like there's a few that I've done that I'm like, oh, this doesn't work for this case. Maybe it'd be better for like a video clip. Let's try.
Would your advice be for those? Sometimes people think they should automatically know which one they should use. Would you say trial and error is the best thing for this? Because then you'll know what your main favorite is, or maybe what tends to work generally, but still allowing yourself to try.
100%. You need to play with these effects and see what works for you, because some might work really well for like a certain type of video clip, but some might work better for graphics when you're applying graphics. So for example, if I apply this iris round to this, because they're video transitions, you can apply them in between clips. This kind of looks interesting. Wait, hold on. I think there's a better place to put it. I'm going to guess it's like around here. This could look cool. That looks nice. But if I apply that iris round to the text, you kind of don't understand what's happening, really. It's not as clean. And you can make custom adjustments, but if you're trying to use presets, you probably don't want to use custom adjustments. So maybe that's not the best move, but there are other presets that work really well. For example, the wipe ones are really great for text. I mean, they're great for video too, for video clips too, but for text, I feel like they make the most sense. If I add it here to the Paris Cafe sketch, okay, sketch looks like a normal word now. I took a break from it. It looks normal now. I came back. All right, check it out. That works. So that wiped right on and almost looked like it was typewritten. If I were to add like a type effect, it would work.
Actually, I was gonna say, when I've tried to do things like that before, I would go, okay, I'm a After Effects person. I would
Yeah.
go and animate the mask to do it. I don't think I even
Right.
realized I could just use the transition to that so much quicker to do the same result.
Exactly. So there are just, it's not the exact same, but it's similar enough.
Also, while we're
Got
having the
something in my
drink
throat, you
break,
guys.
it's okay.
It always
Valerie's
happens
just
on a
asked,
live stream, of course.
well, you know what? You've got a lot to say, so we've got to make sure the throat is prepared. Got to be
Okay.
prepared for the knowledge.
I think I'm back. I think we're good. I've got a fan on and sometimes something gets in and whatever, but now I have that wipe. That looks good. And I've decided just now that I'm going to leave the sketch with me on. I'm not going to have an animation. I want it on the second people turn to this video.
Which is good because if the hook is kind of like a point second, if it's not there immediately, they won't stay around long enough to see it come up because they don't know it's coming.
Exactly. I want some text immediately on the screen when they flip to my video. And then I have this animation kind of start as soon as we go to the next clip. It's still there and it's fully there. Now, something interesting about this is that if you zoom into your timeline, you can actually, with these transitions, adjust the length of those transitions. So I could drag this out super long, and now it's going to be very slow. Do you want that? That's up to you if you want it to be very slow, but it could be cool for like if the music is slower, it might work out.
I was just going to
ask, in
my
case,
when would you choose to use a slower or a longer one? Does it depend on what you're showing or the music you've added, or?
Yeah, I think I would, if the music was slower and kind of it started with like birds singing and chirping, maybe you would want it to be a little slower. But if you had some really punchy music, you might want it to be super fast. So I've just made it really little. I'm going to exaggerate it. I would never make it this small, but I'm just exaggerating it. Now that was
Paloma
very
just asked a
fast.
question, Fabiola.
Yes.
Paloma's just asked, what effect folder are you in again? And I've got one more question for you after that.
So in the effects panel, I'm just under video transitions. You open that up and then you go to the wipe transitions. There's wipe is the folder and wipe is also an effect. And there's also a few other wipe effects that are not the plain wipe. Let's put it that way. But also you could just type in wipe and it'll pop up. So you have two ways. You don't have to bother opening every folder. I almost never do. I just type in what I want because I always use wipe and I add it in. And not only can you add it in at the beginning of a clip, you can also add it to the end. And now you have the animation in and the animation out without having to keyframe anything.
Does it wipe from the same direction?
Yes. I think, right? Yeah.
So
it's like very tidy.
That's very nice. Valerie just said faster gives the video a more energetic feel. And we've got one more question. Valerie's asked, do you upload, regarding the fonts, do you upload new fonts through the Creative Cloud app for them to populate through the other Adobe apps? They've used the custom fonts that they've uploaded in Adobe Express, but they don't see them in the other ones. So when you're using your fonts, how are you sure, or how do you know that they're going to go to all of the apps that you're using?
Oh, so usually if you're right now, say I selected this graphic and I'm in the essential graphics panel, excuse me, I then do the drop down, you hit add Adobe fonts. It's going to add another window. 1 second, I've got to sign in for some reason. Sometimes I get signed out. Okay, in here, let me move things around. We have Adobe fonts, and in here you can click manage fonts. And here you'll see if that font is activated or deactivated. I think that was your question. And if it's activated, just give it a second. It should populate pretty quickly. Usually it's always in there almost instantly. We could try it out. Let's see what happens. Let's go to a recommendation, see what we have, and let's just pick one out of thin air. All right, let's see this one. Buena Park JF regular. I'm going to say activate all fonts because that's kind of what's created here. these might be web fonts, but I think they'll still work. So I've activated this. I'm just going to highlight the name so I don't have to type it in. And then I'm going to go back to Premiere Pro, select this. And I think if I drop the name in, it's already in there. And that looks pretty cool. It actually has like a Paris Cafe kind of feel to it. So we could keep that. And the great thing about these is that the license, you already have licenses if you are a subscriber. So you're able to just use this across your social. And if you use it in every single video, which is kind of what I'm getting at here with the title design, you can create title design graphics for every video. So people, the minute they see just the beginning title or they see it wipe in, they know, oh, this is a video from that creator who I really love their video, so I'm going to stick around. And you kind of create that branding for yourself for all of your social media videos, no matter where you're uploading. So this is a cool thing. Now I've showed you now how you can add, I'm going to reverse it just for consistency. I've showed you how you add the titles and a little subtitles. Another quick thing, if you wanted to, you click option, you select that graphic, move it up. Now we have another one, right? Right now it's stacked, but I can just select it. I'm hitting shift so that it's not moving left or right. I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. Maybe I'll add another interest. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to add by a full-time illustrator because that's something that people often are curious about. So I'm adding even more context here. It's too little like originally, so I'm just going to widen it. And now all of that fits. We're in there. The anchor point is centered. And now we have another little added interest. And for this one, just for the sake of just showing you different examples, I'm going to drop in the barn door animation. So to the beginning and to the end of that clip. And I'm going to match the speed just by hovering and selecting it. I'm just going to drag that in so that the speed of the transitions is the same, on the duration is the same for each. And now I have a lot happening. But already we've added some more interest to an otherwise kind of not super fast. It's pretty fast, but like we don't have like a huge reveal, like a beautiful island vacation or something really crazy. So this is just another way to add interest. And right now I have all of these kind of running at the same point in the timeline, but because they're graphics and they're their own kind of clip, I can now adjust this. So I know that the sketch with me one that's up at the top, I want to remain there. I want the Paris Cafe one to come in right after with the transition, but maybe the by a full-time illustrator part, it's kind of a lot happening at once. So I'm going to move this forward in the timeline so it pops up later on. So let me just play through this really quick.
So by being able to put them on separate layers, it gives us more control to play around with the timing and the spacing of what we're seeing on the screen. Also, I've got another question for you. Yes. Kimberly asked, related to the titles, can you adjust the kerning on those titles?
I believe you can. You can adjust everything. Oops, I've just ruined it. If you scroll down here, you can select everything and adjust this, which I believe is the kerning. And it's not as tightly controlled as, say, Illustrator, but you do have a ton of different selection. Here's the kerning right here. And so you could adjust it. For this font, for example, it's not allowing me. It's a bit grayed out. It could be because I have everything else already adjusted, but it is an option that, there we go. I just unlocked it. So there we go. It's because I had it highlighted. So you can adjust basically a ton of different effects. So here we go. Oh, I think it's like I have to select a very specific
area.
It's a little fickle, but there we go. Okay. So maybe I have to restart it. Who knows? Maybe there's a bit of a glitch happening, but you know, you can have it, you can adjust it. And this is something that I haven't got to yet because I was showing you the different kinds of ways that you can add these graphics. Another thing you can do is create a style. So for example, this Paris Cafe sketch, let's say, let's say I want to adjust, I mean, anything, even just the fact that I've made it this height. Maybe I want to make it a tiny bit bigger. All right, let's say this is exactly how I want all my titles for all of my videos to be. Every single time, I don't want to have to like, this is something that you might do if you're a beginner. You might take a screenshot of just this area,
Okay.
keep it on your computer for the rest of your life. And
Yep.
every single time you go to edit, you look up that screenshot and you try to mimic the exact same settings because you want to get it right every time, right?
Totally me. Yep.
This is common. I feel like we've all done this. We've all been here. But Adobe has built in styles, so you don't need to do this anymore. So what we're going to hit is under the styles section of the essential graphics panel, you're going to click down and say create style. Now, you're creating a style based on these text settings. So get the settings where you want them and then create that text style. So I'm going to say title, oops, all caps, title design demo 1. That's just what I'm naming it today. You can name it whatever you'd like. Hit OK. Sometimes I write like the color. So let's say yellow, just so that you know next time. You might make a lot. So this is just another way to keep track. Hit OK. And now you have this. So the cool thing is that next time you go to create, I'm going to go over here, just further in my timeline, create a text box and write, well, now it's already preset because I just used it, but you might have changed it to something along your journey. And now you're going to write, hello, friends. And all you have to do is hit down on that arrow, click title design demo in yellow, and it's set right to that. So you never have to manually input this every single time. And it's just so handy. Why not do this, you know?
That's a game changer. This reminds
It's one
me
of my favorite tricks.
I'm not surprised, especially when it comes to you making templates and automating your process. This is a part of that.
Exactly. And the cool thing too is now that title design demo 1 yellow style that I said, that very long wordy one, it's in our project and it's right here. It's this little Premiere file and you can actually right click, hit export text styles and save it wherever you like. Put that on your desktop instead of the screenshot. And now you can import that to your next project and have it everywhere you go. So you don't have to keep guessing.
That's amazing. Everybody in the chat is very excited about that. I don't think we realized that could happen.
It's wonderful. And so you could do that with all of these. So I'm actually going to go ahead and make one for this one. I'm going to create a style. I'm going to say subtitle green. You know, you can have your own method for writing these. I clearly haven't come up with a concrete method, but I just make them based on my gut. So now I have this one. And the cool thing is that later on, let's say I want to add here the name of the pencil that I'm using because people always ask me. I'm going to, oops, I don't know where I just went. I changed panels. There we go. I'm going to write here, Posca pencil in black. And it's, again, we just used it, so it's already pre-saved, but I have it here and I can just click it. And now it actually centered it and applied all those settings. So now throughout my video, I can just keep adding and using that same style instead of kind of having to repeat the process every single time. And again, we can add that animation. Amazing. This is the way you set yourself up for success. And here I went back, added that wipe transition. And some of you may be saying, oh, can you customize the duration of the wipe transition? It's always set to the one that it is by default. But what you can do is copy it and then hover over where you want to place it and just press paste. And now you have the duration. You just paste the same duration that you want to use throughout. So you have that same duration and kind of consistency throughout your project.
Wonderful. And I feel like you might know the answer to this question as well. Mr. J's asked, as you're very up to date with what is trending in terms of how you make your videos, the colors that you use, and even the shapes that you use, is there a particular way that you track down the most trending fonts? Cody Bear let us know that you can actually, if you're looking for a font in real life, this is for everybody else as well. If you are looking for a font that you see in real life, you can actually use Adobe Capture to locate which font it is. But Fabiola, do you use anything to find the latest trending font while you're making your social media videos?
Yeah, so I tend to use, I love using Behance and going through and seeing what other people are using. So, what other new fonts people are sharing and just identifying them. But one popular way that I identify a font that I find is by using Adobe Capture, because then you can find fonts, even if it's not an Adobe font that you already have in the Adobe library, you can find something that's close if you use Adobe Capture. And so that's a really wonderful way to kind of find something similar if you don't want to add and purchase an additional license and still kind of get that same vibe from the font that you're looking for while still accessing what you already have access to, essentially finding it, because the Adobe library is so vast. You could be in here forever. So that's one way to do it. And I also like to go to foundries. So sometimes if there's a foundry that I already have a font that I like from, I'll try and go back and check if they've put out anything recently, because they might have a new font and I'm probably going to like it if I've liked their previous fonts. So that's kind of how I like to search for new fonts. So
Thank
this seems cool, and they have a lot of similar kind of design forward fonts that I might want to adapt, and you can just add the fonts straight from there.
Thank you so much. And one more before you get back to showing us the next step of this process. Valerie missed how you added the preset to the new project. How do you put the preset into the new project again? So I believe that's the style.
The style, yes. Let me repeat that real quick. So if you have, I'm going to create this one. This one is already created, but basically when you select, let me take you back to let me just redo it real quick from scratch. If you have select the type tool, you make a text box on your video. I'm going to say example. And let's say I actually want that to be the title for some reason. You go to create a new one. To apply it, you just go to styles and hit the one that you previously have right there. To create a new one, I'm just going to pick something a little bit random. Here we go, impact. Let me apply it. That's a new one. Let's say this is a new style I want to create and always have access to. All you have to do is hit that style button under the essential graphics panel that you'll open up using the text tool. You hit create style, name it, hit OK, and now it's automatically in your project and you can use it whenever you want. If that style is not in the project, you're not going to be able to find it. So if I open a new project and I haven't added this file into that new project, you're not going to be able to access the style. But all you have to do is export the style by right-clicking it, and now you can put it wherever you'd like. It's just like any other file, a video clip, any other file that you have on your computer. So that's how I would go about doing it. I'm going to delete that example for now. It's actually, okay, there we go. So now I've created this title design. Now, let's say I want to create a template for this. Now, I've already created the style, but if I actually want to create the whole thing as a template, what I can do is add, let's say the sketch with me, this one. I'm going to add the pair. I think I can just copy this. Copy and paste it right in there. So now I've put it back together. Now it's all one. It's all one. This is all one graphic that is moving together. And now there's no separate animations. If I wanted to, I could create custom animations for each one. We get a little bit into keyframing here, but bear with me because I think it's really, really beneficial. Okay, so now erase the fact that what we just did, which was adding the transitions manually, dragging them onto each different one, and having everything separate. I hid that because now we're working on just the one graphic that contains both the Paris Sketch Cafe and the Sketch with Me subtitle. This is because if I want to create a template that automatically has both, I need to include both of these elements together. But I still want the animations to be separate animations. So all you're going to do is hit Effect Controls, and now we're kind of keyframing, you guys, but it's very light, so it's very approachable keyframing. So we have the Paris Cafe sketch and the Sketch with Me. Sketch with Me, like I previously said, I don't really need any animation. I want it to be just the way it is the entire time. But for the Paris Paris Cafe sketch part, which I've said it too many times. I want a little bit of animation. So you're going to hit this down arrow, and now you have a lot of customization. A lot of it was the stuff that we customized in the Essential Graphics panel. So you can just close that if you want. But we're going to pay attention to the transform tools. And I know you're familiar with Adobe After Effects, so this is probably really familiar. But
yes.
all we're going to do is go forward a little bit. I'm going to say, I'm really kind of winging it here. 10 milliseconds. I don't know the measurement there, but that's the one I've chosen. And I'm going to hit scale. And that's going to set a keyframe there. So it's going to be at 100% scale at 10 milliseconds. It could be a different measurement. Don't come for me. And then I'm going to move the playhead to the beginning, and I'm going to set the scale to 0. So now we have a very simple pop-in, just like that. And that worked because we set the anchor point originally, like at the beginning of the stream. So that worked seamlessly. If it's not working for you because of the anchor point, you can hit here and adjust that anchor point. I'm not going to do it because it worked fine. And then let's say on the out, I want the same effect on the way out. So I'm just going to select both of those keyframes. I'm going to go like near the end, paste them, and reverse them so that they are reversing in position, and move them all the way to the end. If you're like, what is going on? Just go through the motions. You don't have to understand 100%, but I think as you practice, you'll understand what's happening. So let me show you what happened. At the beginning of our timeline of this graphic clip, it's moving from 0 scale to 100 scale. Then it stays at 100 scale all the way through until we have this other keyframe that keeps it at 100. And then the next keyframe moves it back to 0. So it's kind of going through that motion. And that's what we want. Now, another thing that I want you to do here is you're going to, I think it's under Essential Graphics. Yes. We're back here to Essential Graphics. I want you to go to Responsive Design Time. And we're going to type in those 10 milliseconds. And then here, I'm going to also do the same. Because now if you go to Effects Controls, you have these little grayed out sections, which you can adjust. So maybe I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Just a touch.
Oh.
Oops. Just a touch
I've never
wider.
seen this before. I have questions.
Yes. So now we have this little gray areas. And this is basically what we're saying is in these sections, in these gray timed out sections, the first 10 seconds and the last 10 seconds, we always want this scale animation. And you can add other animations. You can do position animations. I just want to show you the scale one because I think it's the most used and the most obvious to see. So we're basically making those zones, and you can see it here. You can see it in our timeline that's kind of grayed out here and grayed out here. They're protected regions. So now what I want to show you, the reason we're even bothering with this is because we're going to create a motion graphic template that you can use time after time in all of your projects. And so we need to create those animated protected regions of responsive design time so that you can keep that animation even when you apply it in a future project. And so now that we've set those boundaries, I'm going to right click the Paris Cafe sketch graphic here in my timeline, and I'm going to hit export as motion graphics template. Now I'm going to name this something easy to find. So let's say Paris Cafe sketch Mogurt demo. This is for my own sake later in the future when I'm like, what is that? That's what it was.
Right.
I could also write here title design as a keyword. That way, if I ever search title design, this one will come up. I'm going to copy this title just so I can find it later and then hit OK. And now seemingly nothing has changed.
Right.
But so much has changed about our lives now. Everything is different because now if you go in the Essential Graphics, any project ever in your entire Adobe Premiere Pro life, you can go browse, and I'm going to write in here. I'm going to paste that name. Actually, we're going to search title design and say, oh my gosh, an earlier version of me already created a template that I didn't even remember. And I'm just going to drag that down. And now it's in here. It's in here again, seemingly, I think.
Oh, the layers, the
the
visibility
layers
on the
hidden.
layers one. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was like, it's there, I think. So it's right in there and it looks exactly the same and it preserved that animation. Let me play it through.
Amazing.
So it's a bit long because I made it a bit long, but it's in there. And now you can adjust the length and the animation stays intact without having to re-keyframe it or add any wipes or transitions or anything. You can now change the name, another video that you did.
I love this. I remember seeing motion graphic templates before, and when you were showing us styles, already being able to retain something, but we have to take it with us, export it, and put it into another one. But by being able to do this is like, the styles in this together is the most perfect.
Exactly.
Union.
So styles are kind of handy for that, maybe for that project. If you want to send it to somebody else who's editing, super handy. You can do the exact same thing with Mogurts too. The cool thing is that Mogurts remember all those styles. So it reduces having to import anything. They live in your Adobe library. So they're in there. I've created different ones throughout my Adobe Premiere Pro life, and they all are in there. And the good thing is, you can reuse them and also adapt them. So let's say I want this title forever. Now it's in there this entire time. And that's so handy to just be able to create it once and apply it to all your social media videos.
Absolutely amazing. Everybody in the chat is very excited by this as well. And we've also got someone new that's just popped in. Welcome. If you are new and you've just joined into the stream, welcome. We're joined by Fabiola Lara, who's teaching us how to create animated graphics and closed captions in social media. And we do have a question from Efren, which I think probably after this, Fabiola is probably going to be going to.
Yes.
Efren asked, how about the dB level of voiceover and background music?
Yes. So right now, I've had it muted this whole time because as we're scrubbing through, I didn't want the little kind of quacky noise going on. But I have it here. I have this, my narration. Let me play through just a second of it.
Where I was, remember the trip that I had, because it kind of...
So I have this music in here. It's pretty simple. If you click on it and you go to Essential Sound, you're able to, I'm going to clear the audio type because I already have it set. But if you click on it, it's the first time that you're editing this narration, this audio, you can select the type of audio that it is. So dialogue, music, sound effects, ambiance. In this case, it's dialogue. And then I'm going to use a preset, which as you saw before, I used the balanced female voice. And that kind of automatically kind of adjusts the audio and clarifies it.
Just like, remember where I was.
If I clear it.
Remember the trip that I had.
It was a lot lower. And then I add
fast
it
when you're in the moment, but by drawing and
so I know you mentioned that you were going to explaining to us automation and the way of the future, and here I am just using Adobe Audition, like, I'll try to up the volume, I'll lower the noise, and you're telling me that it does it automatically in Premiere anyway.
It does. And so you can open up Audition and do so much more in Audition. But again, if we're talking about social media video, maybe you don't need to get that sucked into the details, right? Maybe you don't need to pay attention to every single little thing. You can just add this preset, balanced female voice, or maybe podcast voice, another one I really like. Let me show you that one.
Goes really fast when you're in the moment, but by drawing and sitting with
it's another nice one. And so if you have that in there, it will automatically kind of adjust for loudness. But if you also have background music, you can also, if you clear this audio type, you can also hit music and then go to the preset balanced background music, and that will be balanced background music. And then you can also, adjust the clip level volume all within the Essential Graphics panel. So those are things you can do. Again, this was dialogue, so I'm going to put it back to, I'll just leave it at podcast voice. But depending on what kind of audio you're dealing with, those presets that are built into the Essential Sound panel, super easy, highly recommend for social media video. I have a podcast and I sometimes open up Audition. For the most part, I try to keep it all in Premiere Pro and just edit as much as I can and fine tune the audio all within here. You can get away with a lot just within Premiere Pro because it's capable of a lot. So there you go. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that really does allow Premiere to be a little bit more accessible in other areas. So you don't really have to worry about knowing too much by going into the different programs just to put it back into one. You've got it all, again, just like with the auto captions that we're going to be learning, you've got it all in one spot.
Exactly. And, this is a minute video, maybe a minute and 4 seconds. I don't want to open up Audition to kind of adjust and fine tune everything if I don't need to. If this was, something for a client or something more robust, or we had a million different audio tracks, you may want to open up Audition. You may want to open up After Effects if you want to animate something very robustly. Obviously, those programs can do way more, but here you have a little bit of everything, just enough to get you through, and maybe you don't need to open up another app. And I think it's really beginner friendly too. Okay.
Valerie and Efren just said thank you.
You're welcome. Keep the questions coming. I think I've showed you everything that I like to do when I'm doing title design. I think it's finally time to move on to captions.
Yay.
Let's go. Let's go, everyone. Everyone's been waiting. Captions are the best. As you can see, if you just tuned in, but I have a audio narration going throughout this clip. I'm going to play another second of it so you can hear it. Sitting with this. I'm going to start it from the beginning. Time for another 20-minute draw with me. This time I want to draw from this footage that I took in Paris. So I really like having videos that have strong kind of narration, that are doing some of the storytelling and kind of carrying the video along, especially for videos where, maybe it's not the most compelling, most insane footage. And by insane, I just mean kind of like those wow-worthy shots, right? Where it's like, I'm on, I'm not doing any daredevil stunts. I don't recommend it, but I just mean I'm not doing anything kind of that's going to grab your attention with the visuals necessarily. So I want to have some storytelling happening. And now I want to add captions so that people who aren't listening with their audio on, like we talked about earlier, can be pulled in anyway. So Adobe Premiere Pro is great with this. If we're just go over to text, hit transcript. Now, if you're like, I don't know where this is, which just happened to me for a second because we've been working for a while and everything kind of moves around, you can just hit text under window text and it will pull it up. And, under the text panel, there are different options. So you might get a little bit confused here. We have the graphics, which are all the graphics that we've been playing with this entire time. But you can also hit transcript and it will automatically transcribe your audio that you put in for the narration. If it hasn't automatically transcribed it before for you ever, it will prompt you if you want the audio transcription, and you just hit yes, because why wouldn't, unless you want to type it all yourself, you hit yes. And I recommend it because it's very, very accurate. So I'm going to let it play here the first, let's say 15 seconds, so you can see how accurate the auto transcription is. Time for another 20-minute draw with me. This time I want to draw from this footage that I took in Paris. Whenever I look at my camera roll from that trip, I just really want to go back, but so there we go. And then I can't. So instead I'm going to draw it, and drawing it really helps me just like remember where I was. So you can see here that all the words are correct, but maybe some of the punctuation I want to edit, which happens because the way we speak, I'm speaking in one big run-on sentence. So of course it's putting in punctuation, and I don't really want it for social media, let's say. So no problem. You just double click, and now this is entirely editable.
So would you advise editing in the transcript stage or in the caption stage?
100% in the transcript stage. That way, when you create the captions, you don't have to go back and edit them. So take the time now to double check. And then that way later, you don't have to kind of backtrack. So here in the transcript stage, it's a great time to read through everything carefully. So I'm going to go ahead and keep editing. Of course, like my grammar isn't great because I'm just speaking.
Paloma said the accuracy, though, this is so good. This is one of many of the perks that Premiere Pro has available to you, which is perfect for this fast-moving age of the social media. So
yes. I 100% agree. And sometimes I know it's not grammatically accurate. So if you're an English major, close your ears for 1 second. I just remove all the punctuation because I feel like when we are talking with when we're reading closed captions, obviously a question mark you want in there maybe, but a lot of the times I'm just speaking, it's just fast. I don't need a ton of the punctuation. But let's see, whenever I look at my camera
and
here.
Also for the UK people out there, I know one thing that I have encountered with Premiere Pro, the transcript writes in US. So there's a lot of letters or a lot of words that for us isn't necessarily correct. So you might have to go in and change those because the English is American English for there. Yeah. So we'll just have to edit it. Any other fellow UKians?
And, you know, the cool thing too is that it's also available in other languages. So, for example, I've done audio narration where I've spoken in Spanish and it will do a great job. I just set the language to Spanish before it runs it, and it does an excellent job, which is really great. And, you know, it doesn't do the Spanglish yet, but I feel like there's a world where it may.
Valerie just said, if you have multiple cameras filming, will Premiere automatically sync them? And before you answer, Mr. J just said, you can replace punctuation from above using a replace option. So apparently there is something to replace punctuation, which is amazing to find.
You're right. But if I were to hit, let's say I want to replace, let's say I want to remove, I don't want to remove every comma, but let's say every time I say, I don't know, let's look for the periods. Maybe I don't need the periods. You're really bold. You're really breaking all the English rules. You can search for the period, which I just put in, and, you know, right here in the search bar, put dot. So it found them all, and I can actually hit replace here, and I'm going to replace it with an exclamation mark. It's very bold of me. And I can say replace them all. And now every period is now an exclamation mark. So that's just one extreme example, but an example nonetheless. I'm going to undo that because I think it's a little too bold for me. Okay. But in that case, you could also replace other words. So at least I want to find every time I say like, I could search for like, and oops, I don't want to replace it with a like. 1 second. So I can search for like and pull it up and identify where I said it. And because this is the new Adobe Premiere Pro with text-based editing, which is my favorite thing ever, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to share this with you, but I'm excited that we're talking about this. I could actually go in here, identify all these likes, and just hold on 1 second. It's hard to see here. I'm going to make this window a little bit bigger. I'm going to select the word like and hit, right now they're all selected in yellow because I've selected to find them. So you can't see that I'm actually also selecting it in blue, but I'm highlighting it in blue. Okay. And then I'm going to hit delete, and it deleted that like. It's gone. There's no delete. That original delete that was here, I think it was right in between these two. I can remove. I'm also going to remove that pause that it added just because I was between words. I'm going to delete it. And now we're going to replay that.
The likes. And drawing it really helps me just remember where I was, remember the...
So I just removed it. I can do it again with another one. I'm going to highlight this like. You can't, it turned orange because I also have it highlighted just as I'm reminding you what's happening here because it's hard to see. And hit delete. It removed it and it's gone. Let me play that through.
I'm able to literally remember where I was.
So that one wasn't as clean, but you can fine tune. You can get in there and fine tune it. It applied those cuts right in here. And if you just, sometimes I just hover right where that, we go from one clip to the next. I do a right click, apply default transition, and move it in a little tiny touch. And it usually sounds a little bit better. Let's see.
I'm able to literally remember.
So that sounded a lot better.
Fabiola,
to literally remember.
You're a magician. You're a magician. I've never
Premiere
seen this.
Pro. It's Premiere Pro magic.
Oh my gosh. Because normally people would go through, you're like, oh, let me wiggle through. Let me cut it. Oh, it's not quite right. Let me try it. Hello?
You can select them all here. And I do imagine that there's going to be a world where maybe we might be automatically able to just remove everything that we highlight. We're not there just yet, but we're pretty close. And this is pretty fast to do. Another thing we could do is maybe this part where I rant about the 20-minute limit helps me prevent myself from falling into perfectionism. Because otherwise, if I had no time, I would sit there all day with it. Maybe I don't need to include that part. Maybe I just want to make this entire thing a little bit shorter. Not, you know what? Maybe it's because the TikTok is 1 minute and 4 seconds, but the YouTube short needs to be under 60 seconds. So I need to delete that part. It's just, something's got to go. Something's got to go. So I'm just going to highlight that entire section. I'm going to actually just move things around here so you guys can see what's going on here in my timeline. When you highlight the words from that section, it also highlights it in your timeline. So you can see what's happening here. And then just hit delete. And now it's cut that entire section out. So now it's going to sound a little crazy because I've cut it in a weird spot, I think. But let me just play it through for you.
And then the 20-minute limit helps me prevent myself from falling into perfectionism. I'm just like, go, capture it, do it quick, and kind of
that actually kind of works.
Video as well. Okay, we're all really into this. Cody Bear just said the new hashtag of forever, Adobe Cadabra. Yes.
Adobe Cadabra. Yes, Adobe. Exactly. Yes. And it cut that whole little bit out. I'm under a minute, which is great because that's what I was aiming if you're kind of re-editing for YouTube. And another thing you can cut out is these little pauses. So sometimes when you're speaking and you're recording a narration, you pause because you're speaking like a human being. But you might want to remove that for social media because you want it to be the fastest, snappiest narration ever. All you have to do is select those pauses. This one's only 0.1 seconds long, so it's minimal, but it can just delete it. And it deletes that part of the video too. So now there's no pause. And I liked it so much that I wasn't, maybe you want that pause, maybe that pause, we needed it, but you can always undo. You can see the length of the pauses if you hover. And if you're not seeing that, you probably have this unselected. So just reselect it and it'll pop right up.
Kimberly's just said, magic. This is so awesome. Ephraim just mentioned, oh, we can do ums and ahs. And it's like, yep, Fabiola's just brought it to us. We do have a few minutes left. What is next in the list? Because you've pretty much made Adobe Premiere look even shinier than it already was.
It's so great. Now, the thing that I want to show you is the captions. So we're going to go ahead and say that this transcript is perfect. There might be some misspellings, but for the sake of the demo, let's move on. All you have to do with your new shiny transcript that you yourself proofread and edited and is perfect is hit this here, create captions. Now, you can add a style. If you had one already created, you could add one. We haven't created a style that's for, actually, I did create one previously, which is a lot like this, but I'm going to just use it. No, okay.
So the style that we made is able to go into the other places too. It's not just.
Yes, 100%. Right now, I'm going to go with no style. I'm going to show you real quick how you can create this, because if you're just starting out, you're not going to have one. So I just want to show you how you would do this. Because we're working with social media, we want it to be kind of what I've seen now as a trend is 1 word at a time, subtitles, maybe 2 words at a time. So we're going to say the maximum length in characters is 7. We're going all the way to 7. Or, I'm going to say 14. I'm going to get 2 words at a time for example purposes. And then minimum duration all the way down. And then the lines, you can do single or double. We only want 1 line at a time. And that's literally how many lines will stack up in your captions. We're going to hit create captions. And in just a little bit, it processes that transcript and creates those captions for you. It's very quick most of the time, unless we have stumped it. But let's see.
But this saves time from somebody manually. Already, we've seen so many time-saving techniques, automated techniques, rather than you having to manually do it by going in and adding a text, typing, going to the next one. Premiere Pro is able to do that for you.
Yes, it's usually extremely fast. I'm sure it will be when you try it out. Let me try this one more time. I'm just going to repeat it. Maybe I just,
just thinking about it for a second. But that does allow me to ask you some more questions while we wait, actually.
Yes.
So in the transcript, where the transcript editing happens, Would you, as it cuts down the video as well, would you do it before you add the video, or are you happy to do it after, just because that way, technically everything that you've made is already there and it's just going to be edited depending on if it's for YouTube or if it's for this, that, or the other? What would you
I
suggest?
usually do it after, because if I want, I have like a long edit and then I'll go through and do a shorter edit, and I just keep those two sequences available so I can always flip back to one. But that's usually how it works out, and it usually works out fine if you're primarily editing to narration. That's usually going to be the route you go, because for some reason it's I've tricked. I think I've done too much today. It doesn't want to generate the captions right now. Let's try it from here. If we go to transcript, we can move over to captions, hit create captions. It's usually extremely, what's it
If
called?
anything, if
Disciplined.
we make the audio that it's doing it from short, I'm sure it'll be fine. But if we make the audio it's doing it from shorter, would that
Yeah,
mean it's got less to do?
maybe. But the other option we have here is, I mean, yeah, let me try that. If I just make this audio really short, well, then I'd have to make a new sequence. So let me, thankfully, because I'm a professional,
Yeah.
I have it loaded already.
Yay!
So this is the version with, it's 1 minute and 4 seconds. It doesn't have the cuts in it that we did a second ago, but here are and this was following that exact process. For some reason, didn't feel like doing it just now on the live. It's kind of typical, but it works great every single time for the most part. So here I have
here's one Fabiola made earlier.
Yes, I made this earlier, generated it earlier, and using those same settings. So you can see that I'm going to mute. I have music here too. I'm going to mute all the audio so it's easier to understand what's happening. But you can see that I have the captions right here. Let me make this a little bigger. Here we go. So you can see I have the closed captioning playing the entire way through, and it's like a few words at a time, because like I showed you, I did the settings where the amount of characters was like 14 characters, something very minimal. If you drop your characters down to 1, you'll have even more jumps between the captions. But the cool thing here is that now I'm going to show you real quick, because we have time, how you can create a caption style. So with your caption, with any, I'll go to the beginning just for the sake of keeping it tidy here. So I'm going to select one of these, and I'm going to go over to Essential Graphics, Edit. Sometimes it pops up automatically, sometimes it doesn't, but I like to show you the different ways you can get there.
Always good to know. I'm
going to create a new style, and I'm going to call this subtitle, or you know what, CC style. I'm going to say demo in my case so I remember. Hit OK. And now this is the style that we have. Now, I've already created this style, and it's kind of makes sense for it's Helvetica bold in this like lime green color. For the sake of example, I'm going to change it to bold oblique. Now I changed the text to bold oblique only for this section of the caption. Everything else is the same. But let's say I want that bold oblique to go throughout all of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push that style to the style in the project. So now that style that we just created is this. And then I'm going to say, push that to all the captions on the track. And now all of them are with that new style that we just made. So that's how you would edit and apply that style if you've never created one. That's how you would do it. You set it in here, make that style, and then apply it to everything. And even if you change it, you can update your style and reapply it to all of your captions.
Wow. Welcome on in, Gus, and anybody else that's just joined. Fabiola has shown us the whole world in today's lesson, where we're learning how to create animated graphics, but not just animated graphics, smarter ways of working faster, being able to do more for actually, since Fabiola just recorded one video, really, when it came to working on the sketch, faster and more interesting ways of working with less to make it look like more, which is perfect for the fast-paced world that we're in.
Exactly. And now this otherwise kind of straightforward video, now we have a ton of eye-catching design happening, making it look a lot cooler. My videos are about art and art making. So people who like art and design would probably be attracted to a more designed video. And so that works perfect for my audience. If you're a vlogger, adding this could also make it seem more high-end, more just professionally polished. So there's just different ways and reasons why you would want to add some text title design and also customize that. The captions are, universal at this point. Everyone has captions in some way or another.
Absolutely.
Now, another cool thing, we've applied this style to all of this, right? Which is that bold oblique style. Let's say in the beginning, though, I don't want it to be that color because it's kind of clashing with all the other colors, kind of gets a bit lost. Maybe I want it to be white. So what the cool thing here is that you can actually go in here. I'm going to change this color. I'm going to go to my libraries. I have all these colors, but also if you just hit the color, you get a color picker. You can pick any color you'd like. I'm going to go and hit just white. And now that's white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go style, create a style. And now that CC style demo that we created, I'm going to do white. So now we have a white option. I'm not going to apply it to all the captions on the track because I just want the captions in the beginning to be that white. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to change everything back to that demo. So now everything should be in the demo. Right. And now I'm going to just select the ones that I want, which are the ones where the text titles are. And I'm going to change that to the white. So this should work. Let's see. Oh, it kept everything and made everything white. Okay. So in that case, for some reason, it didn't work out that way. All you could do is just go to white. I'm going to copy this and just apply it to the ones that I want because it's applying them to all. But sometimes, I find that sometimes it cooperates and other times maybe I just did it in the wrong order. I'm not exactly positive why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's really easy either way. And especially because you're usually customizing just a few to be different, it works out just fine.
So actually, I think this is why it's really nice when one has to troubleshoot when you're streaming, because normally when people are working, sometimes it doesn't happen the way that the person that's streaming is showing it. So being able to see how to do it manually or how to troubleshoot it is incredibly helpful.
Exactly. This is the manual way to do it. I think it's because I am at the first one. The first one tends to dictate how all the other ones go sometimes. So if you let's see if I change this track style to the white. No, everything changed to white. I don't know. So sometimes it did it, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, now you have two options. And another thing you can do, if you minimize the amount of characters that you have, you can highlight individual words.
Oh.
So let's say, all right, we wanted the beginning to start with white captions, but then what if in Paris, I want to just put emphasis on this, right? Because this was like, something different from the rest of the video. I can just customize this style, not using a track style, just using the essential graphics appearance and all the other text editors. So I'm going to say that instead of Helvetica, I'm going to go through here. And okay, this isn't the most legible, but it's the biggest differentiator. So I'm going to hit this. It's super stylized. So I also want it to be large. I'm just showing you the freedom that you could have here. And I'm going to change the fill to this bright pink. And I'm going to maybe add, now a stroke looks a little bit wild, but maybe I'll make the shadow a little bigger. There we go. Maybe, do I want a background? Maybe I could add a background if it was a bit feathered and like less apparent. So I'm just going to shift that around. So you can play with these settings and boost up. Yeah, I think that looks kind of cool. And now everything else remains the same, but this one is highlighted. It's like a whole different thing. And the cool thing about that is that you kind of create a little bit more movement as the captions play through. The viewer now thinks, that's interesting. Maybe I'll keep looking, or I don't know when the next change in graphics is going to come through. It just makes it a little bit more eye-catching.
right? So it's not just the video, it's not just the sound, it's also, if there are subtitles, also make the subtitles look catchy as well.
Yes, the subtitles can have just as much attitude. So, for example, here, maybe I want it to be the same. Maybe I want it to be the same as the Paris one. So I'll just duplicate kind of what I did there and make it, but I can't. And it's like really extreme and stylized. And so this whole time we've been working on captions on the caption track, which is this subtitle track that you see here. It's not anywhere on our timeline. You can't bring this down. It's a separate track. But what you can do, let's say this is exactly what we want. This is it in terms of the text styles. If you click and drag to select all the captions, the subtitles on your timeline, and then you go over to graphics and titles, you can hit upgrade the caption to a graphic.
Ooh.
And now it's in your timeline. You can treat it like anything else we've been doing this entire time. And it's a lot more editable and customizable in terms of animation, which is the other thing I wanted to quickly cover today. Because now we don't have it in the subtitle track. You can't add that kind of animation. You can't add motion. You just kind of add those styles, which are really beneficial. But if you want to boost it up even further, upgrading your subtitle to a graphic is going to kind of unlock a whole new world of possibilities in terms of editing. So, and what did that take? A second? It was so fast.
It was incredibly fast. And this means what you showed us before, by using the scaling, by keyframing, by animating it, by being able to have more control, you can now add more oomph to the words that you're saying.
Exactly. So I'm going to open this up. And here we have this graphic. Now, this is right now, everything is kind of intact, right? As the same timing that our captions need to have and everything. So I wouldn't mess with the timing because then you're not going to be matching the audio. So be careful with that because now you can kind of
edit and change the
get
timing.
Things out of order.
Right.
But what you can do is start editing under effect controls or just with the effects, which is what I want to show you off the bat. I know everyone was really excited about the wipe transitions because they're a really quick way to edit, to animate. Here, again, we can use them. So if we go under effects, video transitions, and then hit wipe, we have the wipe, the inset, the barn doors. I'm going to go with the classic wipe and then show you a few other examples.
Wonderful. We do have about 4 minutes. So
perfect.
Yes,
so you can just drag that wipe to that kind of transition point. Then I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit here. Just drag that duration down, recenter it, drag it down, recenter it. So you kind of want it to be like in the center. But now it goes from that I took and it wipes into the next one, just like that. I'm going to extend it so you can view it a little bit better when we play it through, but usually you'd want it to be shorter. So it just animates right over top, and you can add this. I would just Command C, copy that, and at every intersection, you just drop that in. Again, the one that I just showed you was kind of, the duration was pretty long, so I would, in reality, make it shorter and then copy and paste it, but that's up to you how slow or fast you want to create those transitions. You want it to match the speed of your voice. So here we go. Just with that little section. So now instead of just popping in over top, they're sliding in together. And we have a ton of different effects that you can play with here under the effects panel. Another one that I think is interesting are the slide ones. These are a little bit more dramatic. So let me show you here. This is the cool thing. You can just grab one and put it right on top once you set those durations. So you don't have to play with that duration and drag it in and out. It's already set once you set it.
Very handy.
So I'm going to play this through. Let's see if we can. I'm going to make it long just for the playback.
Wonderful. Oh, yes.
So you saw those. I'm going to add a few more just so we can really, really see it. But there are so many of them. So you can really just have fun and customize them. And you can change them throughout your captions if you wanted to, or you could standardize them. That's really up to you. But there's so much you can play with here.
As we're wrapping up, before we go, can you show people how they would render with the captions? Just in case they've rendered and they've realized that the captions weren't hard encoded. I'm sure this is a really important note. So
yes. No problem. So I'm going to
last
hit save. And then all you're going to do, go to export, the tab right up here. These are the settings I usually use, which are the H.264, the video. I have it set at 1080 by 1920, which is usually what you want to set it to. So you can have the captions on. Right now, because we've changed the captions to graphics, this shouldn't affect it. You can't even turn this on because the captions are now graphics. They're no longer considered captions. But because the graphics and that, if we go back, this is turned on, it's a viewable track. It's going to be viewable when we export. So you can see them play through here. Always just scrub through, or even if this is only a minute, so I would play it back for myself before exporting. But from here, you just click export and it'll export with those burned in. On the other hand, if you hide them, you go back to export, they're no longer there. So those are your two options. So maybe you want to export them for Instagram and YouTube and not for TikTok. You can totally customize from there, but you have endless options.
Fantastic. Fabiola, Gus, and Paloma, and a few other people in the chat just said, super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing your process. And from me as well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Did you have fun teaching us
I had
all
so
your
much
ways?
fun. I always have fun on Adobe Live, sharing my process, getting to chat with everyone. It's always such a good time.
That's what we like to hear. Hashtag Adobe Abracadabra. We're all about it. Thank you so much to you, Fabiola, for jumping in and teaching us how to create animated graphics on closed captions in the most awesome and efficient and fast way. And for everybody else that's in the chat or who's staying around, please be sure to check out Fabiola Lara. I think we'll have a chat or a box added to the chat box so you can check her out, find more of her things later. Kimberly just said, I love this. We'll watch it again. Please do. And if you have just joined in, please don't forget to subscribe to Adobe Live's channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram as well. That way you can stay up to date with the latest streams, the content, the community, and learn new tips and tricks. And speaking of, stay tuned because you have me after this teaching you frame by frame animations. So,
wow, that's a good stream.
Thank you. See you lot later. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you shortly.
Don't go anywhere.